Good evening. Very warm welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show and our weekend review of the action across the EFL and the non-league scene. I'm Chris Bell, joined as ever by Stephen Downs, our Huddersfield Town correspondent and superfan, and Lewis Sale, our Bradford Park Avenue superfan, who also helps us delve into the rest of the West Yorkshire non-league scene. We'll also be joined in a little while by Gaz Walker to look at Bradford City, but he's currently got other media commitments. Sorry, priorities out, Gaz.
Tell you what, I'll tell you what, he's getting too big for his boots, that man, isn't he? And they are big boots as well. I didn't realise how tall he was until our meeting. So
massive boots. I think they're specialist sport trainers he's got.
You're not kidding.
How are we both anyway? Are you well?
I'm good.
Superb. How are you, Chris?
Yes, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Let's start then with Steve, because I know you've got to dash off in maybe 20 minutes or so's time, maybe 10.
I've got the tea.
For your tea, as ever, a man of routine, if nothing else, aren't you, Steve?
I am culture comforts.
You might like to creature comforts in your routines, but it wasn't necessarily the routine result you expected at the weekend for Huddersfield Town, picking up a bloody late point down at the Den at Millwall.
It was. So before we start, just a quick shout out to my mate Jack, who we've all swapped Christmas presents this year. He's my best mate. And this year he's bought me a Huddersfield Town original football that's leather that was actually played with in our 1923 league winning title run. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
that is actually a really cool prize. Oh, prize. I say prize. Present.
Yeah, I didn't win it in a prize. It's not like it were pick and mix. But yeah, it's very good. So anyway, Darren, if you're looking, Darren, if you're watching, it's called a football, right? We might be able to play a little bit sometimes. Bloody hell. Right, let's get on to talking about that crap show. So basically, we didn't play football for 98 minutes, 95 minutes, and then we got a penalty, and we drew. So that's pretty much the review, if I'm honest. Like, Millwall attempted to play football and we didn't. We had some shots. We had, we had some attempts at goal, very rare attempts. It was very frustrating again. And Jack Radoni was back in the team, massive plus point. As soon as I saw him on the team sheet, I was like, yeah, that's huge. Which tells you everything about where our squad is. That the biggest player we've got right now is a kid that came from Wimbledon who were relegated. But yeah, it's a point. I suppose you can say it's a point away from home. Millwall are down there, though. It's a game that I feel that we needed to win, really, especially as with last time with the fixtures that I said that we had. So it's a difficult run of fixtures that we're going to come into, and Millwall would have been a fantastic 3 points to get. But I suppose you always have the adage of an away point is a good point, isn't it, really?
Yeah, you could have possibly looked at it more beforehand with a must not lose, I suppose.
Yes.
Slightly rose tinted, because obviously Millwall, you look at the table after the game, and Huddersfield and Millwall both on 22 points, both 2 points clear of 22nd place QPR, who themselves were, you were to an extent done a favour by those down the road in Sheffield Wednesday, and then getting that win over QPR, which was pretty massive, because had QPR continued their upturn in form and got a win at Hillsborough, things might look a lot more squeaky. But as it is, it keeps you where you are, at least. You know better, no worse off, really. But
yeah,
you've alluded to it, Steve. What do you think the overall Huddersfield Town fan base, emphasis on the overall, not just you, makes of the style of football? Is everybody else firmly in the Steve Downs camp with, my God, this is boring?
Yes. To put it plainly, yes. Yeah, to put it succinctly, mate, yes. I'm sure if you did it, there is a poll on a very, very well-known Huddersfield Town forum. I'm sure Lou and Chris, you'll know what I mean when football forums are maybe not the best gauge to take, but there is a poll on there of, do we want Darren Moore to still be our manager? No has got 243 votes, something like that. Yes has got 19 votes. So
I mean, it's nice to see the entire fan base has bothered to vote then.
You what, sorry?
I said it's nice to see the entire fan base is positive. I'm joking, Steve. I'm joking.
Wow.
Really
Chris,
want
get,
to know
Chris,
this
get
already.
off the podcast. Where's Steve? I prefer Steve. No, the thing is though, the style of football is hindered by the squad that he's got. So I understand that the squad is not very good, and it hasn't been very good for a number of years. This is probably the worst squad, as I've said previously, that we've had since we were back in the Championship. So I do have sympathies with him on that because he's not had a chance to change. He's not had a transfer window and he's not had any funds made available to him as of yet. We will see. I predict he will still be in a job come the January transfer window. And we'll see what he does. We'll see if he's identified any players that he would like to bring in which would enhance his style of football. My problem that I have with him is that a sign of a good manager, and this is why, whatever you think of Warnock, this is why he's a good manager, because he can go into any club, not Man City, but he can go into virtually any other club and make the players better than what they are, not in terms of skill or technicality, but in terms of heart, desire, and fighting for the badge. And I wouldn't say that's Darren Moore's type of management anyway, but it certainly doesn't help him with the style that he wants to present because the players that he has ain't capable to play what I predict is his style. You know, we've gone to more of a played out from the back, which is fine, but we don't necessarily have the centre backs to do that. We've got Tom Lees, Matty Pearson, you and Akiyama can do it. You've got people like Ramari Edmonds-Green, who can't pass football. Well, he can, but I pass wind better than he passes football. So
Nobody's going to get that, mate.
So it's difficult. I have some sympathies for Darren, but and he did come and clap the fans, to be fair, after the Millwall game. So I don't know whether that's because he's listened to our podcast or whether it's just he's had an absolute blasting from somebody inside the club. So yeah, I think we're just sort of trolleying through really to January. It's a bit like a car that's just on its last legs, that's about to die before it gets into the garage, and it's just hopeful that it can get there before it conks out altogether.
The thing is, did we not somewhat see this coming? Because when Darren Moore was appointed, I think a few was on the pod said, that looks like a solid appointment, but not an exciting one. And that, for me, from where I looked at it, was that Darren Moore, whilst he did get that from, got Wednesday promoted last season, and it took that almighty comeback at Hillsborough to get there, he's never been the most expansive flowing football. He's always been quite a pragmatic style of play wherever he's been, hasn't he? He obviously has got results in some places and not in others. Are we?
Yeah.
I mean, even with the squad he's got, but you look at his kind of career so far, there's nothing that, from an outside perspective, would make me think he's going to suddenly change his style off the back of getting players in. It might just be a slightly more successful, pragmatic style rather than ever actually being what you class as fully exciting.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, really, mate. Because you speak to Wednesday fans in the 2.5 years he had at Wednesday, they didn't play a very successful style of football in terms of free flowing, nice to watch, popping it about here and there. It wasn't really like that. And in League One, so if you're a good side in League One, you can do that. Look at Ipswich last year. That's what they did. That's why they got promoted. You've seen Charlton do it before. You've seen Southampton do it before. Norwich, Leeds. Us to an extent when we were in League One, we were a decent footballing side. Sheffield Wednesday weren't that under Darren Moore. He didn't really play that great football at Doncaster, even though he was, again, had a decent record there. I think the only example that you can probably maybe see is at West Brom, but he had very good players at West Brom. I mean, he had very high-end Championship players that could do that. So I don't know how much that was down to Darren's style of play, or maybe the fact that he had such exceptional players that,
good technical football.
they couldn't really play a sort of doom-tastic style of football, as I've sort of nicknamed it there. But I don't know. I think, listen, he needs to get some players in. in January. I still don't think he's the man for us. You can go. Anybody can watch this podcast and go back over the last 14 games since we've appointed him, and have I said the same every week? I've not changed my record ever, saying he's gone from being an unbelievable manager to, I've always said he's a solid, nice bloke, and obviously a decent at a certain level, but he's not a manager that inspires great confidence in me. I wouldn't say I've changed my tune, never.
No,
I don't think you have, mate. And I think, there's probably a couple of points to make on this for the next couple of weeks when you come up to the festive period. You've got, not an easy running, have you? You've got Norwich away, meeting your old friends.
Yeah.
And then you've obviously got 2 home games, haven't you, against Blackburn and Borough, which, on the face of it, both have struggled in the past 5 or 6 games, so that's capable of getting out of. I mean, I think at the time of this recording at the moment, looks like Schumacher might be going to Stoke, who are just above you. So I think you're right, aren't you? You're limping at the moment till January. I mean, you'll probably know far better than me. Like, what's the budget? Do you think he's got money to spend in January, or is it a case of getting people out to get people in?
Well, nobody knows, Lou. No, nobody knows, because nobody knows what Kevin's prepared to spend, because every time he says something, he's like, I'm prepared to open my wallet and spend whatever needs to be spent. But at the same time, he wants to build a self-sustaining Championship football club. Well, the two are complete opposites of those two statements, So nobody has an idea of what Kevin wants to do. I think everybody's pretty safe in the knowledge of what he wants to do off the football pitch. I think that's quite clear. I think what's not clear is what he's prepared to do on the pitch. And listen, his statement at the weekend, weekend.
Sorry. That for those that haven't seen it.
You what, Chris? Yeah, you can read it if you want.
Those that haven't seen it.
Yeah, have you got it up?
No, you talk us. You'll have seen it.
Yeah. So basically, I'll read the statement that he put out. Let me just get it up now. So he put this out after our most recent loss, the game before the game of the weekend. So he put town supporters a few things. I don't like to communicate when I'm angry, frustrated, but after taking a deep breath, I can tell you that not only do I hear you, as I always do, but I share your frustrations. As I see it, supporters need something to support, and being honest, there is not much there right now when it comes to results and entertainment on the pitch. I am looking forward to arriving on the 4th of January and will be there with boots on the ground the entire month. I will be there to ask tough questions of everyone, from players to management to executives, and I will answer the tough questions posed my way too. I will be there for the entirety of the transfer window, as we will be strategic, surgical, and aggressive in trying to bring in the talent we need. You are the customers. I hate that word. You spend your time and hard-earned money to escape from the realities of the world for a few hours a week, and in return, you deserve a product worthy of your time, effort, and money. To be frank, we are not currently holding up our end of the bargain. I'm not interested in blame or fault. I'm only interested in identifying and assessing problems and asking them and solving them as quick as possible. That doesn't mean we will always see eye to eye, but I can promise you, as you spend your time and money on the club, I will be doing the exact same. We will get through this, and we will build a sustainable, winning club you can be proud of. That's everything. As always, thank you. This is your club, and I'm here to have your back. I look forward to seeing many of you in person next month. KN.
Well, I mean, it's quite a positive statement, I think. I mean,
no, it is.
But also going back to kind of what Lewis was touching on in terms of what do we think the budgets could be for Town for January, that suggests that there will be some spending. This might be the window, perhaps, where there will be some money spent before they look at the longer term sustainable club mantra, because ultimately, It's signings that are needed now to keep you away from that bottom three.
Yeah, I think the quality of player needs to improve. That's very difficult to get in January. It's a very hard window to operate in, particularly if you're looking to bring in quite a number of players. So we'll see on that front where Darren wants to improve. I think we've got to bring in a striker. There's the Jordan Rhodes option. Are we going to keep him at Blackpool, or is he going to bring him back in? Does he want to use him? So there's lots to think about. Squad wise, and there's lots of areas to improve, but it was a positive statement. I'm glad that he made it. It needed to be made. I think the fan base after the debacles against Bristol City, and I forgot the other fixture that we lost. I've tried to burn it from my mind. Basically, he needed to say something, and the point against Millwall, whilst again, it wasn't great in terms of football. I felt a bit sorry for the 500, 600 fans that went down there. At least it's a point, and I just think we're just limping into January. Absolutely. I tell you what, Schumacher going to Stoke, that appointment doesn't necessarily worry me, because Stoke are probably one of the hardest clubs to get right in the whole football league. They've had so many different managers; it's unreal. What does worry me though is I think Warnock will be straight in at Plymouth. I just do. Like,
Yeah.
why would Plymouth not go appoint somebody who's on their doorstep 10 minutes from ground? They just won't wonder. They just won't. So if I were Plymouth, I'm not advocating this Plymouth, by the way. Please go appoint somebody, an absolute nobody, and get relegated. But and save us instead. But if I were Plymouth, I'd be looking at Warnock. I'm not that worried about Schumacher going to Stoke, because I just think, Stoke spent so much money in the summer and brought in so many players. You just thought it would have been a good season for Stoke, and I had them right up there, to be honest. But it's not been.
Stoke. I think the only thing that goes against Warnock, perhaps, is you look at the last couple, in particular, of recent Plymouth Argyle managers have been younger types of coach, obviously in Ryan Lowe, and then Schumacher, just to carry on the continuity. However, I do think you are spot on that surely for him, because he lives in Plymouth, doesn't he? He lives just down the road. He has got to be an option, and especially as a manager that is capable of keeping sides in the Championship. Gaz Walker, who joins us from his media celebrity duties on BBC Radio Leeds.
Hi, mate.
You're right.
Yeah, not bad. Are you guys?
Yeah, not bad, Gaz.
Gaz, Steve, before we kind of let you go and get off for your routine and your lovely evening meal, it's a busy period coming up, isn't it? You look at these three games over this Christmas period. Norwich away on Saturday, obviously going to David Wagner's Norwich at that. Blackburn at home on Boxing Day, and then Middlesbrough at home on Friday the 29th. They're tough games.
Well, you look at it and really you say that Norwich is probably the easiest fixture out of the three of them, and we very rarely travel well to Norwich, if I'm being totally honest. I think we had one very good win over them years ago when we went up, and Kachunga scored, I think, twice, and that was in the promotion season. But by that, we're not very good at Norwich. So I'm not expecting much, Chris, if I'm being totally honest. I'm heading for a defeat this weekend, if I'm honest. 3-1 maybe to Norwich. They play some good stuff and they've got some good players. And then you look at
it's three sides that are just outside that playoff.
Well, that's what I'm saying now. Blackburn, Blackburn have, like Lou said, Blackburn can have some poor results, but they play some good football. And Smodricks, if he's on it, then he's one of the best players in the division. Yeah. And Borough, they had a terrible start to the season, but they've massively improved. And then you look at the next one after that. I think it's Leicester. So
it's easy then, yeah.
Well. That's what I said to Jay, though, on the last one, if you remember. I said, how many points do you think we'll get? And Jay went 1 point out of the next 5 games, and that was away at Millwall. And so far, he's spot on. We've got 1 point away at Millwall. I predicted no points. I didn't think we'd get any. So we've beaten my record, although very low. We've beaten it. So, yeah, it might not be a positive sort of start to 2024 for me. To be honest, I
I
think
want
the
to
best
say
thing.
you've only got Man City after Leicester, haven't you? So I mean, it gets a whole lot easier for you.
Do you
I
know
mean,
what?
probably-
I can't wait to watch that on iPlayer and just slowly go into more and more depression as I might blank it from my mind. You know, like when some people have amnesia and they just can't remember the car accident that they've been in. So it'll be like that. It'll be a car crash of a game, and I'll just suddenly get amnesia by smashing my head on a brick wall or something.
So
You might catch Man City on an off day because
Well,
they'll be on the high of winning the club. What is it? The Club World Cup in Qatar or wherever it is.
Japan, isn't it? Yeah, Japan. Apparently, I mean, you look. This is quite weird, this boys. So since we've drawn them in the cup, they've been on the worst run in 7 years in the last 7 years. So
Well,
I think it's that.
to give you hope.
Well, I think it's the FA Cup draw against us that's absolutely made them crap their pants. Really.
I think you're wrong, but I think that could be an interesting.
Lou, give me some hope. Just give me some hope,
I
mate.
know. To keep going, give yourself some hope. So we're talking about being proper cheesy Christmas because this is probably the last one we're probably going to do before the big day, so to speak. If you had a wish list to Santa, then Steve, what things would you wish for in the new year?
New eyesight. No, you mean football wise. So I'd have a striker, a centre attacking midfielder, which I think me and Chris have agreed on before. To be fair, probably a ball playing centre back, and probably a whole new bloody team and manager. To be honest, there we go.
Not a lot, then. Brilliant.
No, not a lot. Not a lot, to be honest. I think the main thing is striker, centre attacking mid, and a ball playing centre back. They're the three players.
A new spine to your team, right through the middle.
Yeah, basically. But the biggest one of the lot is a new manager. Get Tony Mowbray, bring him up now. I can't believe who is it signed Michael Beale and all. Sunderland. I've got to go in a minute. But what has Michael Beale ever shown? He had a decent stint with Gerrard up at Rangers, right? But when he got the main job, he was crap at it. He's gone down to QPR, crapped his pants, and can't do a job down there. So what the bloody hell do people think he's going to be able to bring to Sunderland?
I've just got to wait until the FA Cup tie, first of all, because I can't say a word. Until hopefully we beat them, that's when I'll say something. But I ain't jinxing anything before that game.
I just don't see how he keeps getting jobs, but that's just
I don't. Just before I go, I did lie and say that this was the ball that we played with in 1923. I can categorically say it wasn't, but it's a replica, so it's a very nice replica.
Lovely.
I just don't want people to.
I mean, he's just a couple of zeros off its valuation right there.
Yeah. I just don't want people to come to my house and pinch it.
What's the tea, Steve?
Salmon with potatoes and veg with chocolate trifle, hopefully for dessert, if that's what my mum's bought. So
I hope they're separate because that sounds a weird combo.
No, they are separate, Lou. No, they are separate. I had a lovely bacon sarnie from Costa today for dinner. Not that anybody needed to know that, but
yeah,
you know what I mean?
This is taking a weird turn. I love my food, but this has gone very off-piste.
I'm just trying to. Lou asked a question, so I
have
to answer.
And you know what? And I'm pleased on this because he's ending with a smile on his face, isn't he? All doom and gloom. And
it's more because I've seen Gaz's little cheeky face and he's happy for once.
5 weeks in a row.
Oh my god! Right, I'm off. See you, boys. Right. See you later, lads. Enjoy your Bradford chat in League Two. Bye.
Goodbye.
There he goes, off for his team. Steve Downs, our Huddersfield Town correspondent. I don't know which way to turn next. Do we delve into Park Avenue or do we turn to Bradford City? I'm going to keep Gaz waiting a little bit, seeing as he kept us waiting with his BBC commitments.
I want to lose happiness anyway.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, obviously, I was with you at the Allerton game the week before, week last Saturday.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
A piss-poor performance in the pissing rain. And it was horrendous. The weather was bad. The football was even worse somehow, and that was saying a lot. And I said to you, on the terraces, as you're losing 2-0 to Adams and Collieries, Soslow says, you'll just go and win us something at Macclesfield. And lo and behold, mate, you did. Just call me Mystic Bell again.
You keep getting it right, don't you, mate? I don't know how you do it, but you must know something about football, yeah.
What, a 4-3 win at Robbie Savage's, and who's in charge now? It's Alex Bruce, isn't it?
Yeah.
Son of Steve. I mean, you'll have loved that for a start. A 4-3 win at Macclesfield, which, let's be honest, not many people saw that coming. Very few teams do go to Macclesfield nowadays and actually come away with all 3 points. So to get an absolute Christmas cracker of a game as well, you must have been absolutely delighted on the way back to Bradford.
I was buzzing. I was hoping to maybe get a message into Mr. Savage and his famous radio show and go for Team of the Week, but couldn't resist it when the old Macclesfield owners at the side of us. So, I think we were a few celebrations in the car next to him on the way out at Moss Rose. Yeah, wow. I mean, the game at Atherton was just horrific, wasn't it? It was just awful. It were two very poor teams who looked destined for relegation, and Atherton took the chances against us, who were just blooming awful, and went to Macclesfield with pretty much zero hope, not far off it. But I did make a comment midweek between some of the fans and what we're saying is that, changes have happened in the past couple of weeks that people might not know of. So Martin Knight is now left the club. So he's no longer associated with the club. I mean, Tom Mastravik is now sporting director and Callum stepped up to be commercial director. With
they're looking for an assistant
now operations manager.
Well, the job, yeah.
Yeah, so there's been a few changes off the field. As well as that, we've got 2 lads in from Halifax on loan as well, Ted Lavelle and Tom Scott in goal. So, there were a couple of changes. Luke Heverns left. So, yeah, there's been quite a bit of shuffling, which, and let's be honest, absolutely needs a lot more doing because it's still pretty broken. But, yeah, I mean, went to Macclesfield, and there were that few of us that we didn't even open a terrace behind the goal. Let's be honest, probably 5-6 years ago, would have probably filled half of it. I remember the times we went to York, we'd have probably taken 200, if I'm being honest, and there must have been about 30 of us. That shows where we are as a club at the moment. And actually, we didn't start too bad. We actually started on the front foot, which was really surprising. And then, I'll be honest, against the run of play, they scored the first goal, and we just all turned to each other and we just went, "Oh, get the pints in, drink responsibly, lads." But we could be in for a long day here. But to our credit, the heads didn't drop, which was a massive thing because we've seen it happen a lot this season. And we kept on pushing them. Don't get me wrong, Macclesfield are probably one of the best teams going forward. I'll be honest, they're probably one of the worst teams I've seen at the back this season. I don't think we're like that at all through the league campaign. I think, it might have been a one-off. Goalkeeper made some, quite bad decisions. Defence went much better. And we went for it, and it was quite encouraging to see. We didn't hold back. And arguably, we could have had a couple more goals to that. Did we deserve to win? Yeah, I think we did. If it had been a draw, would it have been unjust for us? Probably, but we'd have taken a draw at any stage of the game. And I wouldn't say we were really hanging on. Yeah, we did drop a bit deep in towards the last 5 minutes, like you do, against a team that's littered with stars. But before the game, there were people rocking up in the big fancy cars, Lamborghinis, Range Rovers, and there's our lot turning up in a white transit minibus with Tom McStravick driving it and the kit man running after the bus to get the kit out. That is actually true. That was what was happening, and it was honestly, we were just like, "What is happening here? This is Sunday League stuff against Football League opposition." But we've done the job. It shows that it's not about money. And I'll make that point really clear to those that are listening, especially from an avenue persuasion. The budget's talked about a lot, but it shows that actually when you've got a bit of spirit, and you can play football and you do what you need to do well, and you've got jobs to do, that you can do it. So it isn't about budget. It's getting the right people on the pitch at the right time to get the result. We've just got to make sure that this isn't, again, a one-off, because it could quite easily be a one-off. We've got to build some consistency, looking at guys from City perspective, exactly what they're doing. And now the board and the owner needs to back the club to actually say, this is what we're doing to keep this club in the league, because apparently the prime objective now is to improve our league position and performances. And that will only happen if the investment goes into the players and the management on the field, because at the moment, Tom's looking after all the footballing issues at the moment, both, from academy to first team to managing the first team and academies as well. So, and he can't do that. It's clear to see he's got a good football brain, and he probably knows what he's talking about. but he needs help, and the club need to sort out that situation as soon as possible. And yes, you need the right person to come in, but the games don't get any easier in the next 4 or 5 weeks, and we need somebody in soon as to keep that momentum going and keep a little bit of a feel good factor after the Macclesfield win.
Where do you see the likelihood of a new man coming in to be the first team manager, or do you reckon that there is a possibility that Tom McStravick does end up as the first team manager? And how would that be viewed? Would it be viewed as basically, dare I say, the cheap option because he's already within the club? Or do we think that there are actually options out there that aren't already involved in the club, but would, to be honest, possibly do, more experience and do a solid job?
I mean, I've said it before what I want. I don't think we'll get it. I do think we need somebody who knows non-league inside out as much as we can in a local area to get the best out, of a club at the moment, the situation we're in. I don't think the money's there to get that person in and support them as much as what I hope we would do. Would it surprise me if Tom looked after the first team? No. My big frustration at the moment is, has that worked previously to whittle down the applicants to the existing head coach role? Is that being wasted now? Mr. Knight's left and now McStravick's in charge because that's been 3-4 weeks process of recruiting somebody, and now Martin Knight's left. What does that leave us now? Does Tom have to start all over again? Does he already have somebody in mind that he can bring in? Apparently, according to the local press, we're apparently close to possibly appointing someone, which will be interesting to see who that person is or people. Don't know. But it's we're all saying the same. I'd say there's 99% of us on the terrace saying the same thing. Just give the person the job and back them and get some experience in, because we could add 3-4 players to that team. And I'll be honest, I think we'd probably survive this division. At the moment, if we still got what we've got, I'd still question it despite the result on Saturday. But the club have got to really support the new people coming in. There's people, how many times have I said it, been involved for years. And there's somebody who goes week in, week out as well, who very rarely, if I'm being honest, moans. And he even said to me, he says, this is the worst I've ever seen it. And he never says anything like that. And that was even before the victory. So we've just got to make sure that we can get the stuff off the field sorted, give the lads on the pitch a bit of support, because we're capable of winning games like we've shown on Saturday. But we can't not go another 9-10 games without a win, because when you do that, that's relegation form again.
Yeah, and coming up this busy festive period for Park Avenue brings Bamber Bridge at home on Saturday, Redcliffe away on Boxing Day, Guiseley at the Horsefall on New Year's Day, and then Morpeth and FC United and Manchester in the couple of weeks after that. So as you say, it's that busy run, and that result on Saturday needs to be backed up.
It does, and this is what I said on Saturday, even after the win, that Bamber Bridge is a massive game. It's probably on a par with the importance of what the Atherton Collieries game is, because if you don't back up that win against Macclesfield, it doesn't really mean much. You've got yourself 3 points unexpectedly. You've got yourself out of relegation zone unexpectedly. So, there's some good feel factor, like I say, amongst the players, hopefully now, and a bit of confidence to go into that game. People will probably look at Radcliffe game, probably won't give us a chance, but they didn't on Saturday. So if we can potentially take, 3 to 6 points out of the next 3-4 games, that might not be too bad. What I would like to see, like I said before, is to get somebody in, ideally before the Radcliffe game. Do I think somebody will come in before Bamber Bridge or take the team before Bamber Bridge? They might come in, but I probably won't take the team. But, the Radcliffe game, the Guiseley games are very tough on paper. And when you look at Morpeth and FC United, who, FC United, played us off a park early in the season, but they're not that far above us. So we've got to be in that space, I think, around that time when you get the Radcliffes and the Guiseley out of the way to really kick on and start the new year in good form, because it's crazy as it sounds. You've almost got to pretty much write off the season that's already happened, and you start your season in January. For me, that's when your season starts for us now. You've got 4 months to survive in that division, because if you don't, then there's big trouble.
Yeah, just to sum up for those that don't necessarily know, the bottom of the Northern Premier League table, it's 4 that go down. and Park Avenue are currently fifth bottom, a point ahead of Basford United. Basford have played a couple more games as well, but then you've got Mars below that, who are having almighty issues of their own in terms of ownership and actually being able to fulfil games at the club. Just a couple of points behind Avenue. And it's still quite tight at the bottom of the league, so there's still a lot of sides, excuse me, that will want to get out of it. Let's turn our attentions to our other side in the Northern Prem, Guiseley. Of course, Danny King was one of the staff members that's left out Park Avenue of late and has joined Andy Welsh's backroom staff team at Guiseley. And for them on Saturday, a 2-2 draw against Hyde United, two sides really that have very much got hopes and aspirations of making the playoffs come the end of the season.
Yeah, I was watching the highlights earlier today, and I'll be honest, you look at Hyde goals, and I saw the interview with Andy after the game as well, and he was disappointed with the goals that were conceded, which you can completely get from a management perspective. You know, I think first of all, when you watch the Hyde goals, they play some really good stuff, and it looked, really good on the eye. I don't think the conditions suited both teams really as well as probably what they would do. You know, the ball sticking on the pitch, there wasn't much giving in the turf really at all. But guys who have hung there, battled for it, and probably deservedly got a point out of that. Both teams, I think, if you're wanting to be hypercritical, if they want to go up, probably got to beat each other. But would they be happy with a point at the end of that? I probably would be. You look at Prince in midfield for Guiseley. And this is no disrespect to Guiseley, he's a level above this league. He should be playing National League North, in my opinion.
He's added goals this season as well. And
yeah,
I mean, nobody saw that coming from Prince. That wasn't his game, over a year or more ago. And now he's chipping with a few of late.
Yeah, and I think what we're interested in, we're listening to Andy Welsh at the end of the game, and he was saying, he feels like he's almost become a bit of a leader. He doesn't say much, but his actions speak, quite loudly on the pitch, which, you do see from some players. It's not always about being vocal and being the most, noisy one on the pitch. Yes, it can help. But when you've got a player of that quality, doing what he's doing at the moment for Guiseley, then, sometimes actions do speak louder than words. And watching the highlights, he pretty much dictated that midfield for Guiseley. And I think when you look across the division, there's not many players like him. And let's being honest, Guiseley are probably fortunate to have him. They'll absolutely take it. But he's one that they'll probably just want to keep an eye on over January. And I think, there will be a few clubs sniffing around for him. And if that's the case, Guiseley have either got to be really honest and saying, do we get some money for him? Or are we really serious about pushing for promotion? Because if that's the case, then we need to keep him. But guys, I think a steadier way, they're doing exactly what I think many people would have expected him to do at the right end of the table. I think they've improved probably more of a style of footballing the way they played rather than what they did under Paul Phillips. Is it easier on an eye? Yes. They're probably a little bit more disciplined. It would have been interesting to see what Phillips would have done in his time at Guiseley, because I still think he would have done okay, if I'm being honest. But I can appreciate why they've made the change. And again, Welsh has got the connections from a local area. It was one name I called out, like, for me, and I've said it on the podcast and to us lads before, he was my first choice at Avenue. I think guys have got a good person there who knows his stuff, knows his football, and he knows what he wants to get. And he's quite, how can I put this? He's very wanting of his team. He's not scared of saying it. Again, watching his interview, he was quite demanding of his players, saying, we need to be honest in that dressing room. So-and-so wasn't good enough. We need to do this better. And actually, from a fan's perspective, it's probably quite encouraging. And for some of the players, when it becomes this busy period over the Christmas time, players will be going, it can go both ways. But if you've got trust in the manager and you've got trust in each other, it can actually spur you on to do really well. So I think guys will be knocking on the door towards the end of the season in and around the playoffs. Do I think we'll get there? I'm not too sure. I think it will depend on January. There's a lot of teams. I think it will depend on the recruitment. And if you keep the players, the main players fit the likes of Prince and probably hitting Tom Denton, those kind of players who have got that experience and know-how. But at the moment, it was, they seem to be going at a good pace to Guiseley.
Yeah, Guiseley currently sat 9th in the Northern Premier League on 33 points. Same points as Ilkeston and Macclesfield just above them, Hyde on 34. And then you're into the playoffs on 34 points with Marine. So they are one of a whole cluster. You could arguably go all the way down as far as probably Lancaster on 29 points. only 5 points off the playoffs, and they're in 13th place. They're still literally at top half of the table. I think we'll be fighting for them playoff places all the way to the end. And for Guiseley over this festive period, they've got Garforth Town on Tuesday night in the County Cup, but then on Saturday they're away at Basford. They've then got Marske at home on Boxing Day before going to Avenue. So actually, they've got 3 of the bottom 5 in this festive period, which if you were looking at this from Andy Welsh's perspective and from the Guiseley fans' perspective, you would absolutely welcome that, but also with the caveat that you've got to beat the sides that are down there if you want to be up where you are or where you want to be.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And probably looking at the table from the teams I've seen this year, I think probably Guiseley, maybe the top 10 are capable of getting into the playoffs. The other ones I think might just fall short. But yeah, I mean, if you're Andy Welsh now, you're looking at those fixtures and you're saying you've got to get them an absolute minimum of 6 points, an absolute minimum.
Yeah.
Basford are probably not a similar team as what they were at the beginning of the season. They've recruited, about 4 or 5 players, look a little bit different from when they did. They seem to be those that are stuck at the bottom of the table, not going to do much. Now they're not an easy team to play against. I mean, we don't know the situation at Mask, whether that game won't even go ahead or what the situation they're in. But, sometimes adversity can, real spur and galvanise a lot of teams together. You'll have to, I know it's a completely different situation. Look at Everton at the moment. When stuff goes against you, what you can do. And a derby's a derby. Some talk about form up being thrown out the window, but I'm not too sure about that, the way that sometimes we've been going this season. And again, that depends. Do we get a new manager in? Is a new manager bounce? But like I say, if you're from a guy's perspective, you've got to target these 3 games because if you do, then you probably are sitting in the playoffs come New Year.
Absolutely. Let's turn our attentions then. Gaz has been eagerly, patiently waiting, and Gaz, just another mediocre weekend for you guys, I suppose.
It's a roller coaster, isn't it? Bradford City, it always is. Like first couple of games under Alexander, lost at Barrow, and then hammered and 4-0 down at half time to Notts County. Come out in the second half, he changes back to the formation that Mark Hughes were playing at the start of the season. Suddenly we're playing 3-2
that Gaz absolutely loves.
And we look a different team. We should have got a point out of that game at Notts County, bizarre as it sounds. We've not looked back since. 5 wins on the spin, 3 in the league, 2 in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy. Probably looking at the Gillingham game at the weekend was going to be a really tough one because obviously the big spenders, favourites to go up. And we'd not played in the league for goodness knows how long because we had the Salford game postponed. And it was basically a case of could we pick up where we'd left off, and we really did. Those that were there said we played really, really well. Carried on, like I say, where we'd left off under Alexander, keeping things simple. Everybody knows the roles. We're not trying to overcomplicate it. We're not playing it out from the back. It's get it forward, be a bit more pragmatic, and it's working so far, and it's really good. I am, obviously, as a Bradford City fan, you've got to be wary because we've been here before. Mark Truman and Connor Sellers had a really good start when they took over, and we're in a similar vein of form to what we're in now, and then the wheels fell off. So we've got to be really careful. Obviously, Graham Alexander's got a lot more experience than they had, so hopefully that won't happen. But then he had a really good start to the season with MK Dons, and the wheels fell off there. So, you've just got to be careful, but things are definitely looking up at the moment, and we're playing some really good stuff. We're getting goals from all over the pitch. We've conceded 1 goal since that Notts County game. So we're tight at the back. We've got energy in both wing-back positions. Cook's got some help up front from Tyler Smith. Jamie Walker's playing well as an 8, one of the 8s next to Richie Smallwood. And yeah, things are looking up, so long may it continue.
Right, that's Bradford done it, Lewis. I was going to touch actually on the fact that, as you said there, we've only conceded that 1 goal since Notts County.
Yeah.
Another clean sheet, as we said before, away at Gillingham. And as you touched on there, Walker and Cook in particular on the score sheet on Saturday. Goals starting to come again for Andy Cook and starting to come from other sources as well.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, Chris, because we've been over-reliant on Cook, haven't we, in the past? Everybody can see that. Getting someone up there alongside him in Tyler Smith's helped. It was Cook's 10th goal of the season on Saturday. So, although he's been getting stick, you're not even halfway through the season, he's got 10 goals. Yeah. So, it carries on like that. It's another 20-goal season, isn't it? It's just, people are just far too quick to jump on his back. And I think he's been a bit, he's given the fans a bit back sometimes, and I don't blame him, to be honest. You know, he cupped his ear apparently when he scored on Saturday, which is fair enough. You know, if you're going to give him stick from the season he had last season, he's still on for 20 goals this year, isn't he? Tyler Smith's got 9. Where's that come from? Suddenly Tyler Smith's on 9 goals for the season. Like you say, we're solid at the back. My not so favourite player, Ash Taylor's suspended, so Matty Platt went into the centre of the 3 on Saturday, and John Tompkinson, who's on loan from Norwich, came in on the right-hand side, and he got man of the match by all accounts. He was really good. I think Kieran Kelly on the left of the 3, John Tompkinson on the right, they bring the pace that the one in the middle doesn't necessarily have in Matty Platt, Ash Taylor, Sam Stubbs, whoever is to play in that middle. Those 2 on the flanking it, bring some pace to it, and it's working at the moment. Brad Halliday, player of the season so far at right wing back. Lewis Richards come in to play left wing backs, playing really, really well. So like I say, it's good. Then you've got like Jake Young banging him in at Swindon, and he could come back in as well in January. We'd be daft not to bring him back. So even if he doesn't come into our team, you'd expect that we'd be able to sell him for a fee. So looking towards January, if we can get January right, then there's no reason that we can't be looking up.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I'd like nothing more than see Jake Young come back and actually get into that City squad and add some goals to that City lineup. I mean, look at the league table, and these recent results, you know, the 3 league wins out of the last 5 games that you touched on, have lifted Bradford to not quite dizzying heights. However, 14th, but crucially, yes, you're 14th, but we talked about how tight the league is for Bradford Park Avenue and for Guiseley. It's even tighter in League 2. 14th place Bradford City, 3 points off the playoffs. You know, 29 points Bradford are on, and Wimbledon sits 7th on 32. So there are, again, a lot of sides in that mix, but every chance that Bradford can be right in that playoff mix come the end of the season if the form either continues or even just, you know, kind of steadies away. You know, keep picking the results and the playoffs are in reach.
Yeah, I think there'll be teams looking over the shoulder at us at the moment, thinking, you know, like we're not necessarily, like you say, we're not surging up the league, but the points difference is becoming a lot smaller. Yeah. We've got a tough run of games. I mean, we went to a game together last week, and I was talking about the tough run that we've got over Christmas. We've got one out of the way with Gillingham. We played Doncaster away on Friday night, who got hammered at home by Morecambe on Saturday. Yeah. So they're going to be wanting a reaction, which probably makes that game could make it tougher for us than it might have otherwise been.
You have to wonder how much pressure Grant McCann will be under going into that game.
Yeah, it crossed my mind. Like, you lose 5-0 at home when you're Doncaster in League 2. It's a long way back, isn't it, for a manager? Obviously, he's got credit in the bank there because of what he did last time when he managed them, but their fans will be expecting promotion this season or playoffs at least, and they're not showing it at the moment. No. So he's under pressure. It'll be interesting to see how they react to that result when they play us on Friday. Then we've got Morecambe at home on Boxing Day, and then we've got Stockport at home on the Friday after Christmas. So they're 2 tough home games.
Yeah.
And then in the new year, we've got Crewe away, who are also up there. And then the next home game after that is Crawley, who are surprising people this season because people thought that they'd be the whipping boys, and they've not been so far. So we've got a tough run, but if we can come out of that run of games in reasonable shape and within touching distance of the top 7, and then we can make the tweaks that we probably need to our squad in January, get some players out, maybe where we're overstocked in certain areas, and maybe a couple in where we might be understocked, then things are looking up. So, yeah, I don't like saying it, but I'm quite positive at the moment.
It's very odd, I must admit.
I was going to say as well, what I heard Graham Alexander say, I don't think it was last game, the game before, but he was talking about maybe January could be a chance to just shuffle a few things about, you know, maybe move some players on. We talked about Jake Young as well. You know, you can almost flip it on its side, can't you? You could almost say, do you use Jake Young as a bit of bait, get a bit of extra money in potentially because he hasn't really done much at the moment in his City shirt for you. Get a bit of money for him that you're probably unexpected and you invest it back in the first team. Is that something do you think that could happen, Gaz, at the moment?
It wouldn't surprise me, Lou, to be honest. I mean, I was talking on Radio Leeds just before now, and they asked about January.
Yeah.
And they said, and it might be, do you know what? He's talking about it being more a case of getting players out than getting players in. And you can understand that because our squad's huge and we're overstacked in certain areas. We're playing this 3-5-2. We're playing with Richie Smould as the 6, and then we're playing with 2 8s, one either side of him. And it's Jamie Walker and Alex Gilliard at the moment. But then you've got Alex Patterson, Clark Adore, Harry Chapman, Bobby Poynton can all play in that role. And then I've spoken to Chris Watt, might be saying it, but Ryan East on loan at Rochdale. We'd be silly not to bring him back. But where's he going to fit into that team? And then you've got, like you say, we're talking about Jake Young. Tyler Smith's got 9 goals suddenly since he's come into the team alongside Andy Cook. You're not going to bring Jake Young back and sit him on the bench. So you might be a case of saying, we're going to bring him back because we'd be daft not to. But do you sell him on and take the money? There are going to be clubs probably in League One looking at him, at the amount of goals he's got for Swindon this season. And are we going to look at it and say, obviously, we want him back, but do we not want to upset the apple cart at City too much at the moment because things are going so well? It's a tough one for Alexander. It'll be interesting to see what he does. I can't see him staying at Swindon, but whether he plays in a Bradford City shirt or gets sold elsewhere, it's a tough one.
It feels like the Owen Doyle situation, and it's like there's something in the water when you get a striker who's predicted to do well, goes somewhere else and bangs goals in for fun, and now you've got a conundrum, haven't you? Do you bring him back? Do you have to weave him back into the system because he's not trained under a new manager? You know, players. Let's be honest, he's probably not trained much with them, and now he's coming out of that situation where he's in now to a completely brand new one. Even though it's his parent club, it'll feel very alien. It's almost like he's signing again for somebody else, but. I think this is a thing where they've got to probably weigh up, haven't they? If you can get a bit of money for a player who arguably hasn't really played for you to a League One team, and there's potential targets out there that Alexander knows, and he knows that scene really well, doesn't he? That could almost, you could get 1 or 2 players for the price of what you might get from him at the moment. And, you kind of put your commercial hat on. Are you going to get the same value for Jake Young now as what you might do 12 months down the line?
Well, I was about to say, when's his contract up, Gaz? Do you know?
Yeah, he signed a 3-year and he's halfway through it this January. There's 18 months left. So, as you're saying, January's a seller's market, isn't it? People are after strikers all the time. When he was at City before, I mean, at Forest Green, he was like back up to Matty Stevens, wasn't it, at Forest Green? He's come to City. He didn't fit in under Hughes. I don't know what really went on there. There were rumours that he fell out with Mark Hughes. And when he did play for it, he was playing sort of off the left rather than central. Obviously, he's gone to Swindon. He's playing up front with Charlie Austin at Swindon. I'm led to believe that they're playing a very, very attacking brand of football. So he's getting a lot of chances at Swindon at the moment. And whether he'll get the same amount of chances, obviously we're playing well and we're winning games, but will he get the same amount of chances in a City shirt that he's getting in a Swindon shirt because of the brand of football they're playing? I don't know. Like I say, I can't not see us bringing him back. Whether he stays with us and gets in the team or whether we sell him on is a really, really tough question. Most City fans will be saying keep him, won't they? Keep him, put him in the team. But
I'll be honest,
like you said, with your marketing hat on, what do you do?
I'm obviously, as a neutral, I'm still looking at this from a City fan perspective and thinking you'd be daft, as well as Tyler Smith has done in that role, you'd be daft to not bring him back and give him that crack alongside Cook, because Smith and Young are not that dissimilar in terms of physicality, the style, and the role that they play as a striker. So I think you'd be daft to not bring him back and at least give him the first couple of weeks of the January window and see how it pans out, see how he films a relationship with Graham Alexander as well in that time, and suss it out from there. But surely you've got to at least give him that crack alongside Cook, because you could be looking at a pair of 20-odd goal season strikers at this rate.
I think that's the way I'm leaning towards, Chris. You've got a month, haven't you? You don't have to make a decision straight away. You can bring him back, put him in and see how he goes. And like you say, suddenly you could have 2 20-goal-a-season strikers up front for us. He's not too different. He's not too different to Tyler Smith, like you say. Very different to Andy Cook. So there's nothing to suggest that he couldn't play with Andy Cook. And suddenly the team's looking strong.
You'd then have depth, wouldn't you? Because you then have your Cook and Oliver as your 2 bigger men, and you've got Smith and Young as your 2. You wants to play off the target man. Absolutely, 4 strikers for 2 positions, 2 options for the little man, 2 options for the big man. So injuries can happen.
Of course they are. You've hit the nail on the head there, because we've really missed Verdane Oliver while he's been injured. Andy Cook's been flogged to death, having to play week in, week out. Verdane Oliver's back now, and hopefully you can do what we did last season and take Andy Cook out the firing line when he needs maybe a breather, or maybe he comes off the last sort of 15 minutes in games. You can bring Verdane Oliver on. What's to say we can't do that with Jake Young and Tyler Smith? Like you say, we've got a month to decide, so there's no rush. Let's see what happens. Maybe see how he comes back, how he fits in. He's a northern lad, I believe he's from Huddersfield, so maybe getting back home, he might not be. It's a long way down south to Swindon for him, so maybe he might be glad to come back up north. You don't know. Let's see what happens. Give him a go.
He was in Guys' Academy as a kid.
Yeah, I believe he's Huddersfield lad. So
I think it's what makes it really interesting, because I 100% get what you guys are saying. You see, I'm kind of the opposite way.
You're looking for me, aren't
you? Yeah, and that's probably just me, because of I've seen it happen before, and you can't predict what the future is going to be, can you? And I think when he's in such red hot form, which I agree, he could come back to City and he could rip it up at City, absolutely. But I just can't see at the moment, unless he carries on his form at City, where you might get the same value from him in 6 months, 12 months time. And I think at the moment, if you're sitting, you're probably, at the top of a club, or you're Graham Alexander, you might be thinking, actually, we could potentially get maybe 50 to 100k from him here. And that could be reinvested into a couple of players that I think could strengthen different positions and do what they need to do. But I think you're right, guys. I think you've got a month to decide. I mean, the worst thing happens, the worst case scenario is he comes back and he gets injured and he's out for the season. You're just not going to get that money back in return. And this is where the ifs and buts come into it, don't they?
And the horrible thing is, Lou, that there was rumours going around that Flynn said something about his playing with an injury at the moment for Swindon.
Right.
There was something said online earlier today that he's got an ankle knock and he hasn't been training, but he's been playing. So if you're Bradford City, you're not really happy with that, are you?
Yeah, it's such a difficult one, isn't it? And I think this is where I think the likes of Sparks and Gent and Alexander have all got to get their heads together and kind of work out, actually, plan A is this, plan B is this, plan C this, because there's potential where you can get a player in and one player can go out, so you're not bloating the team. I think for me, the question is probably for you guys is, with players potentially leaving, which we're probably expecting at City, is the current team what you've got good enough to get in the playoffs?
Do you know what? I've been really optimistic. I've looked at this formation that we're playing at the moment, and I think that the centre halves that we've got, you're looking at Sam Stubbs, Ash Taylor, Matty Platt for the central position. You're looking at Kieran Kelly on the left-hand side, John Tompkinson on the right. That's strong for League Two. You look at the central midfield, you look at Richie Smallwood, flanked by Jamie Walker, and either Alex Gilliard or Alex Patterson. That role's made for Alex Patterson, if you can find his form from the start of the season.
Yeah.
That's a strong midfield for League Two. And then you look, and like we've just been saying, like Chris said, if you've got Andy Cook and Jake Young up front, 2 20-goal-a-season strikers, there's no reason that team can't even look higher than the top 7. You've seen teams do it before. You've seen Barnsley come from nowhere in League One the other year and go up. You've seen Bristol Rovers do it the other year in League Two in the second half of the season. If we could, like I say, and then you've got, I hadn't even mentioned the wing backs, like Brad Halliday has been player of the year so far on that right-hand side. He's been absolutely fantastic. The worry is, if anything was to happen to that starting 11, it's a difficult one, like I say, because the squad's so big. And Alexander's already said that you've got to he's probably going to have to take players out rather than bring players in. But you want to have cover for that starting 11 in the right positions. We've got a lot of 8s, like I said before. So I can see the 2 loanees in Tulloch and Afoka going back. But then you're a bit short in wing-back positions for cover. After Halliday and Richards, Liam Rydell showing a wing-back to me. He's your cover at left-back at the moment. Yeah. And then Oyegoke is injured and he's the cover at right-back. He's gone back to Brentford because he dislocated his shoulder, and he's the cover that we've got at right-back. So you're probably looking at possibly some cover at right wing-back to come in. Yeah. But other than that, I'm struggling to see where we might look to strengthen. I suppose if anything was stopping to Richie Smallwood, you've got Kevin McDonald would come in and play in that role. So yeah, it's a tough one. I don't know where we'd look to strengthen. The obvious thing is that you'd bring Jake Young and Ryan East back, and you'd send Afoka and Tulloch back to the parent clubs. But after that, it's a really tough call for Stephen Gent and Graham Alexander and Ryan Sparks to make. Yeah,
it's good. I think that's the key question. If Alexander can look at that team and go, and actually, these are the players I've got till April, May. Are these lot capable of getting us in the playoffs with a chance of going up? I think that's a big question. And if I think like you've just identified, if there's a couple of places where he thinks he can strengthen, a City of, let's be honest, have been active in transfer markets in summer and in January, haven't they? So they're not scared of, dipping a toe in the water. And I think that's going to be a real key one for Alexander, and, to put his proper stamp on the team. Even if he adds one or two, I think that'll probably just cement you out it to be, quite serious contenders. I think, again, yourself as a Bradford City fan, if he doesn't make any signings and you go on a bit of a losing run, you can imagine people going, why didn't he sign this person? Why didn't he get this person potentially back? And that's when, fans are fans, aren't they, at the end of the day? But I think it's going to be a real interesting time for you guys at Valley Parade, I do. And I think it's one where it can either just, kind of peter out into a nothing season, or you actually give it a right good go and you could peak at the right time. And I think, like you said, Gaz, probably people might not be expecting you to be there or thereabouts. And if you are in playoffs, you don't really want to fancy you guys if you're on a good run of form, because Alexander's got a form of getting teams promoted.
Yeah, he's talking really well. He's got the fans on side. He's probably the closest thing that we've had to Parkinson since we had Parkinson. It reminds me very much of him, the way he talks. And people are buying into it at the moment, and will be a difficult beast to stop if we get going. Yeah. The thing is, like I said, Christmas is key. We've got some tough games, and then it's what we do in January. When you're talking about like the fans' reaction to what he would do with Jake Young, the safe thing is to bring him back from a fan's perspective, isn't it? Because it's like you say, you sell him on and he goes elsewhere, and we start struggling and he's banging him in elsewhere, then fans are going to be like, why have you done that? Whereas if he comes back and he's not playing well for City, there's not going to be the same sort of anger towards the board. So yeah, the safe thing is to bring him back at least for that month and see how he does.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. I think that's the most positive we've seen Gaz all season.
Yeah, watch us lose our next 5 over Christmas and looking over his shoulder again. That'll teach me.
I mean, Doncaster on Saturday, what do you expect? Obviously, we said it's going to be a tricky one because of the fact that Morecambe went to Doncaster and battered Donny at the weekend. There's going to be a response there, but on the face of it, you look at that and think there's a good chance, albeit a Yorkshire derby too in the mix,
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? It's all going to me, obviously, we need to just carry on doing what we're doing. We're doing a lot of things right at the moment. Yeah. So you've kind of got to ignore the noise around Doncaster and just carry on doing what we're doing. But on the flip side of that, a lot of it is going to depend on how they react to that defeat at home. You lose 5-0 at home, your fans and your manager demand a reaction. So we've just got to sort of, put that to one side and focus on ourselves. But it will depend partly on how they react. It's a tough one to call. It's Friday night, is that one. So, yeah.
Well, the best things you could do is to start that game really well. You get a goal in that opening 5 minutes, that place changes, doesn't it, again?
Yeah, and we win on Friday, we're suddenly level on points with 7th place.
You need to calm down.
I'll take my meds after.
Well, that I think we'll do is we'll wrap it up there then, gents. Thank you to Lewis and Gaz and to Stephen Downs as well for joining us earlier on. I'll give a little plug that at 8:15 tonight, Steve, Brown and Jay will be looking at the Leeds United angle from the weekend's action as well. So they'll be on, I think, at 8:15 for Steve and Jay. But for myself, from Lewis and from Gaz, thanks for joining us for this little EFL review. If we're not back before Christmas, have a great one. And we'll be back very soon here on the West Yorkshire Football Show. Thank you.